I'm Grace Dawes, editor of Movement, and I'm joined today by Brandy Mayfield, SVP and Managing Director of Digital Economy at Aon. Thank you so much for joining me today, Brandy. It's lovely to meet you. Can you tell me a bit about yourself, Brandy, and your role at Aon, please?
Absolutely. As for me personally, I'm sort of a quant person. I'm equally engaged in the aesthetics and art or the science of things. So I was drawn to insurance as a concept to help quantify the risk and reward early on in my career. But I realized insurance is kind of outdated. Risk management wasn't keeping up with the innovation, and I wanted to help change that. So here at Aon, I lead our digital economies team. We're a group of risk managers that oversee a number of tech-enabled businesses and business models. Think like the sharing economies, the future of work, as well as the future of mobility.
Great. And at Move London, I met Gillian Slyfield, who also works in Aon, and she said that insurance is kind of like a gatekeeper for innovation. How do you think insurance can help manage risk in the American mobility industry, and what risks are there that are more specific to the American mobility industry that drivers wouldn't normally expect?
Certainly, and shout out, Jillian is awesome. Jillian's our Chief Innovation Officer. I was thankful that her talk in London was almost a lead into what we were wanting to talk about here in the US as well. So insurance is the gatekeeper. It goes both ways. It helps facilitate innovation, and sometimes it can hinder innovation. So when I think about mobility in the US, a few things come to mind. One is, the US is a cluster of states, and 49 of the 50 states have different regulation around what insurance requirements look like for auto. So anyone that's working in the states sort of has a different flavor of what they need to manage depending on where they are and what they're working. The next is thinking about, insurance for individuals as well as for mobility companies. When you think of insurance, there's kind of three things that you think about. Covering, my assets, covering my property, helping my people, helping manage talent, and then helping to cover some of my potential liabilities. And so when we think about insurance, it's covering those autos, it's covering those designs of the future, which may not be the same vehicle that you and I thought about 20, 30 years ago. There's significantly more technology, there's significantly more infrastructure behind it. And then there's also the impact of medical and those third-party liabilities that's just changing the landscape. Taking it personally, my own auto insurance, for every $100 I spend on liability, I spend about $110 on uninsured motorist, which means it's more likely that there's going to be cost for someone hitting me that doesn't have insurance or doesn't have enough insurance than for me actually injuring someone else's property. So it's just a different structure, but all of those structures are 6-month or 12-month policies in the past. And what you're doing at Move, what teams are doing at Move, and how we're thinking about mobility of the future, we've got to take the mindset down to what you're doing and when you're doing it, and how insurance affects that structure and what works for you at that point in time. We know we need doing different coverages on the market, but we need to hear from you what's keeping you up at night. We help insurance companies build new ways to cover and offset your risks, but we can't do that in a vacuum without being informed of what's really concerning you about your business. It could be things like access to supply, access to technology. It could be things like access to talent, maintaining talent, etc. So it's more than just the auto, but we're here, we're mobility. That is a heavy cost of the insurance burden in the structures for sure.
I see, and I guess this kind of links into what you'll be talking about at Move America in your very own talk called "What Are Your Peers Saying About Risk?" I'm guessing by this you're talking about, other drivers as well. And what specifically do you mean more about your peers? Can you give some insight into the topics of conversation that you'll be bringing up into that talk as well?
Yeah, thanks for that. When I think about the Move conference itself, it is one of the best conferences I've seen that brings together those that are manufacturing and building the mobility of the future, those that are thinking about ownership and non-ownership models, the municipalities, the regulators that are thinking about what needs to happen differently in urban, suburban, rural areas, for these new modes of mobility to work, as well as all of the different technology providers that are needed for these future models. So we've got these great industries that historically people would think about in isolation instead of the whole picture. So when I think about what your peers are saying about risk, Aon facilitates what we call the Global Risk Management Survey every 2 years. And we just completed the survey a couple of months ago and are tallying the results right now. But we will highlight some of the outcomes from the Global Risk Management Survey relative to your industries that are going to be on site at MOVE. So relative to technology, relative to manufacturing, relative to public sector. What have been the top 10 things that are keeping companies like yours up at night? And here's a hint. Car insurance doesn't make the top 10. Well, part of the reason car insurance doesn't make the top 10 is that car insurance exists, but it doesn't necessarily exist for what you're doing for the future. So we'll share what some of the survey results are, where they're insurable, where they're not insurable, and how we help you think about those risks, benchmark it versus your peers. Everyone's taking on risk, but where you want to take on more or less risk, we'll help you think about that, and where we need to move the needle. So talent management, access to supply, parametric cover versus your standard insurance payout, all of those fun buzzwords, we'll help you dissect them and see what makes sense for you and what the markets are doing or what the markets are doing differently to help you find that cover.
Amazing. Well, I'll definitely try to attend that session and see what the other top 10 risks are. What else can we see from Aon at Move America 2023?
Great question. I'm going to say more than old school insurance. So we will have talent on site to talk through actuarial claims management, what losses look like. So for those of you that are working on mobility solutions that kind of require an app to get that solution, etc. Oftentimes the help button in that app for I lost my sunglasses or the driver put the burrito at the wrong house is the same button that gets used for, oh my goodness, I just witnessed an accident for X, Y, and Z. So we have teams on site that will help you think through what you need to manage for trust and safety and risk versus what you need to help your insurance carriers think through this differently, because loss notice doesn't mean the same thing anymore for companies. So let's take it past old school insurance. We've got our leaders in innovation, talent management, intellectual property, cyber best practices, etc. So kind of the whole gamut of risks, not just auto insurance. Bring it up, and we probably got someone there to think through it with you. If not, we'll definitely take it back, give it thought, and get you connected to the right folks.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Brandy. It was really nice to meet you, and I look forward to meeting you in person.
Thank you so much, Grace.